Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night Dos Anjos versus Fiziev. Please excuse me, I'm going to be bulldozing through all of these because I'm kind of busy, so I have to just bulldoze through these. So if I miss anything, pardon me. I'll still be explaining, but I'll be rushing a little bit. We have no injustices on the card. We'll get to a fight where I think there kind of is, but you can't really do anything. I feel like if this fight were in Abu Dhabi, if this fight were in the UK, the scorecard might look different, at least on one person's scorecard, but there wasn't, so you can't really do anything about it. It's just shit that just flows in the wind. But anyways, there's no injustices. Straight to honorable mentions. Honorable mentions are categories where I just nitpick over scorecards, and here we go. Lawrence versus Kakhramonov is the first honorable mention. I had this 30-27 for Kakhramonov. Saul Diamata had it 30. His scorecard reflects mine. Junior Carmijo, his scorecard reflects mine. And then Tony Weeks has it 30-26. He gave it 10-8 in the last round to Kakhramonov. In the first round, Kakhramonov had 4 takedowns with ground and pound for about 3+ minutes. Possible 10-8 there. I'm surprised that Tony Weeks gave the 10-8 to the third round. He put it on. Yeah, gave it to the third round, and he didn't put it for the first round. That's fine. Whatever. Second round, Kakhramonov had 2 takedowns with ground and pound for about 2+ minutes, while Lawler had 1 takedown. And then in the third round, Kakhramonov had 3 takedowns with ground and pound for about 3+ minutes. Not enough ground and pound to give a 10-8, which is why honorable mention there to Tony Weeks for the 10-8 in the third round. Definitely not a 10-8 in the third round. Maybe in the first. You can kind of argue the first round. Maybe, but no. Next honorable mention. There's a lot of honorable mentions on here, I'm not going to lie. Is the first split D of the night. Shevchenko versus Casey. I had this 29-28 for Shevchenko with a 10-9 with a 10-9 in the first and the second for Shevchenko. I forgot to mark these. I'm an idiot. In that very first round, okay, Shevchenko outstruck Casey and got a takedown with little ground and pound. But Casey was active on the bottom, so there's that. In the second round, Shevchenko again outstruck Casey. And then in the third round, Casey outstruck Shevchenko and had 3 takedowns with ground and pound. Now, the narrative in this fight is that the strikes coming from Shevchenko aren't heavy. The strikes coming from Casey are heavier. Problem is, Casey didn't give enough in the first and the second to really steal those rounds, in my opinion, honestly. And we go to the judges' scorecards, where Derek clearly, his scorecard reflects mine. Adelaide Bird, her scorecard reflects mine as well. And then Junichiro Kamijo, he gives the first round to Shevchenko and then gives the last 2 to Casey. Honestly, honorable mention there for that second round. Shevchenko outstruck Casey. There's not enough in there for Casey to steal that round by any means. So, honorable mention there to Junichiro Kamijo. We have another honorable mention. Johnson versus Mullarkey. This fight could have gone either way. I'll read my scorecard. I had it 29-28. Mullarkey. I gave it 10-9 in the first and the second for Mullarkey. This fight ended up being a split D. This is the second split D on the card. In the first round, both got dropped. Okay. But while Johnson most likely probably outstruck... I'm sorry. Mullarkey outstruck Johnson. Let me just get that out there. Mullarkey outstruck Johnson for sure. But both got dropped. The second drop, the one where Mullarkey dropped Johnson, was a little more I guess it's not one of those traditional drops. It's one of those, like, he stumbled and fell, but he dropped him. So, boom, right? I put a close mark on this one because it depends on what you want to value. While I do believe Mullarkey outstruck Johnson, the strikes are close. So now it becomes a what action do you value situation. And Mullarkey got dropped early, and then Johnson got dropped late. I believe Mullarkey outstruck Johnson, and he dropped him, hence he won the round. But it's close. So I think I'm fine if anyone gave the first to Johnson. In the second round, Mullarkey outstruck Johnson. That's clear as day. He outstruck Johnson. And then in the third, Johnson outstruck Mullarkey. So we go to the judges' scorecards. Mike Bell had it 29-28 for Johnson. He gave the first and the third to Johnson. Derek Clearly, his scorecard reflects mine. And then Anthony Manis, his scorecard as well reflects mine. So any of these scorecards are acceptable if we're just being honest. We go to Zahabi versus Turcios. Now, this fight was also weird because in that first round, they were explaining how on the second round, they explained how the first round numbers favored Zahabi, but I didn't try. This happens a lot on the show, right? Where I go, hey, the strike numbers don't make any sense sometimes. Sometimes I feel like they miscalculated them, or I disagree with the counting of the strike numbers. And in this round, in the first round, I disagree. I thought Turcios outstruck Zahabi fine, in the sense that there were mostly leg kicks. I understand that there was the posturing and the noise making, but that didn't affect at all the fact that he still outstruck him. And maybe someone got distracted in the back. I don't want to put that out there, but the point I'm making is this. I don't think those strike numbers are correct, period. So, Zahabi versus Turcios. I had this 29-28 for Zahabi, giving him a 10-9 in the second and the third. In that first round, it was close on strikes with the edge to Turcios. In the second, Zahabi outstruck Turcios. In the third, he also outstruck Turcios. We go to the judges' scorecards. Douglas Crosby, his scorecard reflects mine. Saul Diamata, his scorecard reflects mine. And then Derek Clearly, he gives the first to Zahabi, and then the second to Turcios. Now, he gives the last one correct. The third one he gives it to Zahabi, but honorable mention there to Derek Clearly. He got the first two rounds wrong. He switched them around. There. Next honorable mention, Vanderaa versus Sherman. This fight was actually low-key close. Very, very, very close. This fight ended in a TKO for Sherman, but in the first round I gave a 10-9 to Sherman, and then in the second round I gave a 10-9 to Vanderaa, but it was very close. You can maybe argue that one for Sherman. I wouldn't like to, but you can argue that second round for Sherman. In the first round it was close on strikes, but I believe Sherman outstruck Vanderaa, and then the second round Vanderaa outstruck Sherman. And the reason why I put a close marker is because Sherman was kind of coming back in that second half of that second round. Hence why I put the close marker there. Douglas Crosby, his scorecard reads, he gave it 10-9 to Sherman in the first and the second. It's fine. I don't like the second round that he gave to Sherman, but again, I put a close marker. You can maybe argue it for him. Anthony Manis, his scorecard reflects mine. And then Tony Weeks, he gives the second round to Sherman. Okay, that's fine. But he gives the first round to Vanderaa. Honestly, I don't like that. I really don't like that because Sherman most definitely, I know the strikes were close, but he most definitely outstruck Vanderaa. So honorable mention there for Tony Weeks. Next honorable mention is Andrade versus Nurmagomedov. I had this 29-28. Give the first and the third to Nurmagomedov. The second round, I put a close marker on it. It's weirdly close. You can kind of argue it depending on, I don't know, your vocab. I'll get to that in a second. In that first round, Nurmagomedov outstruck Andrade. Most of the head strikes were in the clinch, though, but regardless, he outstruck him. Second round, despite getting outstruck kind of barely, Andrade kind of dropped Nurmagomedov at the end of the round. He kind of dropped him. It was one of those weird, like, flurries that, because of what happened in the before that moment in the round, that is one of those really important moments. So, hence why I gave him that round. But it's close. So, if you don't value that sequence at the end, then Nurmagomedov wins that round. And then the third round, Andrade got a takedown, but Nurmagomedov got a takedown with a little bit of ground and pound, and he outstruck Andrade. That's 100% his round. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So if if we're being cute, you could go 30-27 Nurmagomedov, but I have a 29-28 Nurmagomedov. Scorecards. Mike Bell has a 30-27 for Nurmagomedov. Derek Clearly. He gave a 10-9 to Andrade. Honorable mention there. That's terrible. And then he gave the first and the second to Nurmagomedov. That's fine, I guess. And then Adelaide Bird, who I know most people don't like, but reflects my scorecard, which I like. So, boom. Then we have an honorable mention that I think could possibly be an injustice, but it's not because of just how people view grappling sequences, I guess. This fight infuriated me, not because of the boredom, but infuriated me because of, in the past, and I don't want to go into a rant or a ramble, but in the past, this is scored differently. Excuse me. In a different region, this would be scored differently. In Abu Dhabi, this would be scored differently. In the UK, it'd be scored differently. Hell, in Singapore, this would be probably scored differently. And I'll explain. The honorable mention I'm talking about is Borralho versus Petrosyan. I'll say Petrosyan. I had this 29-28 for Petrosyan. Reason why it's not an injustice because I put a close marker on the second round, so you could argue a 29-28 in the opposite direction. I gave the last two rounds to Petrosyan. In that first round, Borralho got a takedown with very little ground about for about 3+ minutes, and he outstruck Petrosyan on the feet. That's his round, 100% his round. Okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Petrosyan was active on the bottom, but it's Borralho's round. Here's where we get into the man's active on the bottom, you're doing nothing with the takedowns, and I know there's this new thing where everyone's arguing about, okay, well, he's searching for submissions. Well, there's a difference between having submissions in and just holding someone down. Searching for submissions is not... there's been many fights where people have searched for submissions and still lost. And this... lost the round, excuse me. And this should be one of those cases where second round... Petrosyan outstruck Borralho on the feet and was very active on the bottom. And Borralho had two takedowns that he did nothing with. This standardly, really, I don't even know if that's a word, objectively, is Petrosyan's round. I was very surprised that nobody gave them this round. I was very surprised. Then we go to one that is probably worse. Forget about the second, right? Because you can argue night and day about the second one being for Borralho. Here's the one that's really disgusting. There's no debate on this one. Third round, Petrosyan outstrikes Borralho everywhere. He outstrikes him everywhere. And Borralho got a takedown. Borralho did zero things with that takedown. We go to the judges' scorecard where this is really disgusting. Mike Bell, he gave the first and the second to Borralho. Okay, he had a 29-28 for Borralho. Everyone had it for Borralho. He gave the first and the second to Borralho. He gives the third to Petrosyan. He's the only judge who gave the third round to Petrosyan. I'm confused. The other two judges fell in love with the grappling so much that they forgot to actually score the third round correctly. Like, forget about what you feel about the second round. They forgot to actually score the third round correctly. They forgot to actually sit and pay attention and go, oh yeah, he did nothing with that takedown. Also, he's getting outstruck everywhere. They just fell in love with the grappling. Dude got one takedown and decided, yeah, it's your round. Two judges. Salty might have had 30-27 for Borralho, and Douglas Crosby the same way. Honorable mention to those two for the last round. You can't do it for the second, but for that third round. Last honorable mention. Dos Anjos versus Fiziev, or Fizzy. This fight ended in a KO for Fiziev. At first I thought it was an early stoppage. Then I was like, okay, it's one of those, like, you know, Mark Smith is really fast, in air quotes, at stopping fights. He's not like, what's the word? He's not Tyone fast, but he's, you know, he saves these guys. That's the right word to use. It's not an early stoppage. It's one of those, like, he saves them. He really does save him, man. I think he had the Lawler fight too, where, you know, in a different universe, Lawler hits the canvas. But Mark Smith, pay him extra for saving these guys. But anyways, all right, this was a KO in the fifth round for Fiziev. I gave the first three rounds to Fiziev. I put a close marker on the second. The second one was very close. I'm surprised no one did that, but the second one was very close. And the fourth I gave to Dos Anjos. In that first round, Fiziev outstruck Dos Anjos. Second round, it was close on the feet with the edge to Fiziev, but you can kind of argue to Dos Anjos. I think the strike numbers are pretty close on that. Third round, Fiziev outstruck Dos Anjos, and Dos Anjos got a takedown, but he did nothing. But it was his butt hit the canvas. It's a takedown. It 100% is a takedown, but yeah, it's a takedown, but it's just a takedown. It doesn't really impact anything. And then the fourth round, it was close on the feet again, but Dos Anjos got a takedown here. This was 100% his round, no questions asked. Again, you can argue too, but bleh. Go to the judges' scorecards. Derek clearly gave the first two to Fiziev, and then gives the third round to Dos Anjos. Honorable mention there, that's bad. Dos Anjos got outstruck despite the takedown. He got outstruck. So honorable mention there, he gives the fourth round to Dos Anjos. And then Saul Diamante, Junichiro Kamiya, their scorecard reflects mine. And that's all. And that's all she wrote. And that's it. That's all I got. If there's anything to be mad about on this card, it's fucking Petrosyan should have probably won. And I don't care if the crowd would have booed. I don't care if the commentary were too busy focusing on, oh my God, Borralho's boring. Yeah, he's boring, but he's losing. I thought he was losing. And by losing, I mean, like, lost. But whatever. We move on. Don't care. Thank you for listening, and God bless.